क्या एक बूंद सागर में बदलाव ला सकती है? Yes, friends. Today I take you to a journey where you find that sometimes a drop can make a difference in the ocean. I couldn't believe it when a small effort done in my hospital to save my patients became a global norm, changing the global guidelines. I grew up in villages, studied in villages, and saw people dying due to dog bite as the biological were unavailable and unaffordable. There was unawareness also among the village people. So I wanted to do something for them when I became a doctor. So a idea to save my patients in my hospital, very small hospital, district hospital, Shimla, that we started to implement became a global norm. So this happened in a situation when there was non-availability of the biologicals to treat rabies dog bite patients in our institute. So this is a long journey that started years back when I saw people dying due to unaffordability of medicines to rabies dog bite. I searched literature and talked to the authorities that how we can do something for the poor patients. And we came to know that there is one alternative to rabies vaccine. If we shift from intramuscular to intradermal route, then we can cut the cost 5 times. So now the problem was how to do it, despite the fact that this treatment, this methodology was recommended by WHO, it was endorsed by Government of India, but nobody was following this intradermal route. So at that time in 2008, I went to my authorities, my chief medical officer, to tell him that we have a cheaper option that can be affordable to the poor patient, and we should shift from intramuscular to intradermal route so that poor patients are benefited. But the hope I went to the authorities was shattered when he told me that you are no one to do this because you are not qualified to do this. Since higher institutions are not doing, big towering medical institutions are not doing this, how can you do this in a small hospital? So I told him, sir, this is recommended by WHO, this is endorsed by Government of India, so we should do it. He said, no, first you go, have some qualification, do your post graduation, read something, and then come with such ideas. You are just a MBBS, you can't tell me to do something which is not being done by anyone. At that age of 41, I applied for post graduation. I went for post graduation in epidemiology to ICMR Institute in Chennai, and then in between I got a call from the same chief medical officer that please come and please help us because there is no vaccine, rabies vaccine available in the market. So I was very happy, and I went to him, and whatever vials of vaccine were available, they were utilized in a new method, intradermal method, and 5 times more patients were vaccinated than they could have been vaccinated otherwise with previous method. So that's how we started this new technique of cheaper vaccine in our institute, and later on the chief medical officer made it free to all because the expenditure was down 5 times from 2,250 rupees to 350 rupees per person. So that's how the cost of vaccine went down 5 times and it became affordable to the poor patients, and later on the chief medical officer made it free for everyone. So now the story went out to other chief medical officers, other districts, and slowly they also made it free to all. So that's how by 2010 all state of Himachal Pradesh started free vaccination, and everybody used to get free vaccination. So this is how fight that started in 2008 ended up making me a postgraduate in epidemiology, and at the same time implemented this methodology throughout the Himachal Pradesh. That's how the price of this injection came down. I was very happy that something has happened and people are getting benefited. This is saving lives of the people. Suddenly, I came to know that despite vaccine, there is another biological that is known as rabies immunoglobulins that is not available. And because of scarcity of rabies immunoglobulin, people are still dying despite getting vaccine. Because in rabies dog bite, we have to inject two type of injections. One is rabies vaccine and another is rabies immunoglobulins. So they were getting rabies vaccine, but they were not getting rabies immunoglobulin because it was not available at all. It was not available because it is very costly. It is made from human blood or horse blood, and it's very costly. Human rabies immunoglobulin is costing around 30,000 per person. Doctor prefer human rabies immunoglobulin because the horse immunoglobulin cause anaphylaxis and reaction. So they always most of the time they prescribe human rabies immunoglobulin, which are totally unaffordable and sometimes most of the time not available. So despite free vaccine, the people were not getting rabies immunoglobulin, and no government can afford this much amount per person in any setup. So now I was trying to do something to make rabies immunoglobulin affordable. So I read thousands of papers over the years, and I tried to make a protocol for the poor patients where they can get rabies immunoglobulin into their wounds without giving rabies immunoglobulin into the muscle. Because the protocol at that time was calculate rabies immunoglobulins by weight of the patient, give into the wound and give rest into the muscle. So I came to the conclusion that giving rabies immunoglobulin into muscle is of no use, and rather it is counterproductive. So this protocol was made for the poor patients, and while I was still thinking of implementing this protocol, suddenly in 2014, the rabies immunoglobulin were not available in the market at all. It was nowhere available. So in 2014, when I saw people dying despite having vaccination but non-availability of immunoglobulins, so I saw a person dying. So I talked to my authorities. I told them that let us do something for these poor patients who are dying because of non-availability of immunoglobulins. So my authorities told me to be in touch with WHO. So it was a very strange thing. How can I talk to WHO? It was not accessible to me. But I kept on thinking what to do, how to implement. So I contacted one of my bosses in Nimhans, Dr. S.N. Madhusudana, late Dr. S.N. Madhusudana, who was there, and he was an admirer of my work. And I asked him if we can follow this protocol in such times of scarcity and non-availability of immunoglobulins. He said, yes, we can follow it because I have done these experiments on mice and all mice have survived. So I had requested him to give in writing to me that if this protocol is feasible in such conditions. And Nimhans is a WHO collaborative center for research on rabies. So that carried a weight. So Dr. S.N. Madhusudana sent me a written letter that in such a situation, this protocol is doable and it can save lives of the patients. So that letter was handy to me, and that letter was given to the ethical committee. That's how I got the ethical clearance. And after getting the ethical clearance, I did a CME, continuing medical education, of my doctors of my hospital, DDU Hospital Shimla. They were told why this protocol can save lives. What is the evidence? What is the literature? And then I convinced my medical superintendent of my hospital to do it, to start it. And we started this protocol in June 2014 in our hospital. This was just at that time to save patients in my hospital. I never thought that this would become a global norm. This would be followed by the world. So that's how a small step was a beginning of a great leap forward. So initially we were very apprehensive. What we have started doing it. If somebody dies, then we are in soap. We would be in trouble. But slowly our confidence we started gaining confidence that people are surviving. People even bitten by rabid dogs, they are also surviving, and there was no death reported. There are some hitches. Some people would threaten to sue us in the court, and if something goes wrong. But still, our hope, our uh, belief in ourselves, in literature that we have read, and Dr. Madhusudana's letter was a big boost to us. And slowly, we were gaining confidence that we are on the right track, because we saw many people bitten by rabid dogs surviving after follow-up. When I was injecting immunoglobulin into the wounds, after a lot of permissions, still people were not believing it. The expert wanted me to prove that people have been bitten by rabid dogs by testing their brains. This was not easy job. It was a great challenge, because nobody in the country has tested rabid dogs' brains before injecting immunoglobulins to the patients. So it was a great challenge. But then this made my research more foolproof when I captured such roaming rabid dogs, and when they died, took out their brains, and they were found to be rabid, and the patient bitten by them survived after the application of my protocol. This was a major evidence later on that convinced people in WHO that people bitten by rabid dogs can also be saved by application of this protocol of only wound injection of rabies immunoglobulins. So this way we injected this rabies immunoglobulin only into the wound, about 269 people. And another thing, when rabies immunoglobulin was not available, how we got it? So that is also a very interesting story. I had a friend in Central Research Institute Kasauli, which is a government institute. There some immunoglobulin was kept for VIPs. So I requested him at friendship level, and he gave me some 25 vials of immunoglobulins that we started injecting only into the wounds of the patient bitten by rabid dogs. So this paper of 269 bites was published, and this was seen by people in WHO, and they contacted me and told me if I can give them more data. By that time, because only we were injecting immunoglobulins into the wounds, there's a lot of rush of the patient through, because all through the paper people were being referred to us for injecting rabies immunoglobulins. So by that time we have already had 7,000 patients, and then I was asked by WHO expert committee to collaborate with somebody who has worked on rabies, because I had no previous experience of rabies. So I requested scientists in India to collaborate with me. Everybody refused. So I requested another rabies expert from Thailand, Dr. Henry Wild, to collaborate with me and be my co-author. So that's how the second paper was published. And while this all was going on, review was going on, and non-availability continued, so we also continued to inject wounds. And in the meantime, we started implementing this protocol on animals also. Cows, buffaloes, horses bitten by rabid dogs. So they were being given intradermal vaccine and only wound infiltration of immunoglobulins. So this saved their lives. No animal died. So again, when I was contacted by expert group to have for more data, I told them I don't have a more human data, but I have data on animals. So they said, okay, share it. So then when I shared the data, they were surprised that 600 kg buffalo is being saved by a drop of immunoglobulins. This was an amazing thing that happened here, and that was the first protocol in the world applied on animals. All the animals were saved. I think that must have convinced the people in WHO that this protocol needs to be followed, and there is no basis of calculating volume of the immunoglobulin based on the weight of the patient, because if the animals can survive, so 600 kg animal can survive with one drop, why can't a 60 kg human being survive with the same amount of immunoglobulin? I am very thankful to WHO for believing in my research, for believing in my work, and giving it a go-ahead globally. that's how this change happened, and without me knowing, I suddenly saw one day in my mobile that WHO has changed the protocol, saying WHO no more recommends IM injection of the immunoglobulins, only wound infiltration is important and life-saving. My message to young people is that we need to collaborate, we need to pursue our goal with perseverance and sustainability, keeping our egos low and listening to the higher authorities. And I would say that interest, the patient interest, kept me going. Sometime I would stop doing my work, thinking that why should I do it, because everybody is criticizing. But then somebody would die, and then again I would come up and think of how to save them. So that kept my zeal to do something alive. And the theme of this conference, like Aurora, means atom of ambition. So that ambition should not be dead. That should be there. That leads us to hope, and hope leads us to do something in the welfare of the humanity, in the interest of the patients. When we are sensitive to the patients, when we are sensitive to our neighbors, to the people, to the animals, I think that sensitivity gives you more hope, more zeal to work for the cause of humanity, not only for humanity but for animal welfare also. That should be there in everybody, in everyone. Thank you.